Hi, Kayla Seaforth here with the Treeline Project, coming to you live from my kitchen. So following a conversation with project staff about their work restoring Wapato and Columbia River floodplain habitat at Steigerwald National Wildlife Refuge, I had the pleasure of talking with Sam Robinson, Vice Chairman of the Chinook Indian Nation, to get his take on the project and to discuss other areas of focus for him and the tribe. We talked via Zoom on Sam's lunch break from his day job, and Sam has been working toward federal recognition for the Chinook people, cultural revitalization, and more for most of his life, and mostly on his own time. This streamed interview is outside of the Treeline Project's normal print newsletter format, but I wanted to ensure that the audience got to hear the passion in Sam's voice and see the way his face really lights up when he talks about Chinook tradition and his hopes for the future. Sam is a born storyteller and immediately started sharing great insights when we logged onto the Zoom call, which was before I had hit record. So I do apologize for the abrupt start to the conversation. Sam was undeterred by this interruption and got right back into it. And I really hope that you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. So without further ado, here is Sam Robinson, Vice Chairman of the Chinook Indian Nation. Thank you. Okay. What were you saying?
Yeah. So anyway, watching them plant the Wapato and, thinking, how there was so much Wapato in this area. It was back so much that they referred to, like from Washougal to, Sophie's Island, maybe down to Longview was the Wapato Valley, because there's so much of that being planted, and being, our form of starch, or the Chinookan people's form of starch was fantastic, because, it was like a little potato growing underwater, but beautiful leaves on it, and the women would go out there and they'd work it up with their toes, or sometimes with our paddles, because our paddles have two tips on them, and then would bring them back to the villages, and they'd put them, they could take them and they could cook them and then pat them out into cakes, maybe add some berries to them or whatever, and put them in a basket or a wood box underneath the floorboards of the plank house and have something to eat all winter. And just trading, I mean, I'm the vice chairman of the Chinook Indian Nation, so our 5 tribes start down in Kalama, so we have the Clatsop and the Calf Lameth on the Oregon side, and on Washington side we have the Willapa, the Wakayakim, and the Lower Chinook. And so when I talk about this middle river here, I always like to let people know that Grand Ron signed a treaty in 1851, the Willamette Valley Treaty. And clearly in that treaty, it said the land on the northern shore would be determined at a later date, which is this middle area. And because there's 3 Chinook tribes that were living in this area, our cousins that we'd often visit by canoe and so forth. So I always like to make that clear, that when I talk about Chinook, I'm not talking about, it depends on how I'm talking, but, we don't claim all the way to the Dalles. I just like to tell people that, but we did travel through there, so it was always good. So so they've got this multitude of just a lot of Wapato going on, and of course down by the river we've got things that we're trading with them. We might be putting salmon oil and kelp bulbs and bringing them up to trade, and swap it out, and so everybody can survive the winter. But going over to the refuge and just seeing them plant that, and the whole process of the expansion. The first time I visited, they were working on it, and they were actually removing lamprey and salmonoids from this little creek, and I thought, oh, okay, they're going to get a few of those. Well, end result was there was like over 40,000 lamprey that they were able to pull out of that little creek. A lot of them are little, but I'm thinking, wow, and when we think lamprey, we're thinking, wow, they're like, trying to struggle to come back, but that's a huge number, so I felt pretty good about that. And then able to bring them back in and reintroduce them, into the area. And then the importance, the refuge, they've been learning the importance of putting in native plants and what's invasive and so forth. So that always is really, really good, and we they respect Chinook, and fortunately they'll allow us to go out there and gather, when we need to. For years, I've been kind of pushing the tribe. I've been on tribal council for 20 years, but for years I've been trying to push to get a natural resources committee going. you know, so that we can go out there and take our people out and learn what to harvest, what's medicine, what's food, how to eat it, how to prepare it, and then what we can use for, you know, weaving and so forth. And part of that is, you know, the spirituality of gathering. I mean, when you go out, like for instance, let's say you're going to pull some cedar bark. You know, you're going to pull one strip of cedar bark, maybe about 8-10 inches wide off a tree, and you go out there and you bond with that tree, and you know, and make sure you got permission. You know, sure everybody's feeling in a good way, and pull that strip of bark, and then afterwards, you know, you may at least a gift of tobacco or something, and and a song, and so everything's good, you know. And I feel really good because I've been out in the forest and seen trees 300-400 years old that have a scar that has sealed up from the ancestors pulling that one little strip of bark, you know. And it's a good thing. So that's one thing we like to, you know, teach our folks, you know. And unfortunately, you know, we were really getting going, you know, we were out gathering nettle, you know, early on, because nettle, when it's small, makes a great tea, and it's a great antihistamine, you know, so it's good medicine too. And then COVID hit, and then so we haven't been out gathering a whole lot and getting our people out, but we're hoping maybe this spring or summer we'll be able to get them out again, and you know, they can see what Mother Earth has to offer, and how we need to take care of it. And so, you know, it's a good teachings for us and our natural resources, you know. And then you know, when I think about Staggerball Refuge, you know, I've been on the board for the Friends of the Ridgefield Wildlife Refuge for quite some time now, and I kept telling them that they needed to burn. You know, you got to burn, you burn. You know, you got to take care of this land like the ancestors did. You know, so when they scorched the feet of the oaks, you know, the acorns were like 3 times bigger than normal, and that's what the archaeologists found out down at Cathapodal. You know, they said, wow, the elk were all trophy size, and the acorns were just like 3 times bigger. And we told them how. I said, well, this is how it happens, you know. And so one year out here, there's some kids playing. This is probably about 5-6 years ago. Some kids playing out at the refuge out here in the summer, and with fireworks, and they set the refuge on fire, so it burned all that grass out, and a lot of invasives too. And that next spring, it just came up so pristine, and these guys were like, "Wow, it came back amazingly." And I said, "Yeah, it's amazing what a little burning will do here and there." So they actually started to do a few controlled burns down on the Ridgefield Refuge as well. You know, so it's just, you know, the ancestors knew how to do it. You just got to, you know, remember and just do it. You know, it's just, that's all. You know, so I'm sure it took a lot of red tape.
Yeah, that's the other part, is undoing all of the silly, you know, rules and regulations that have been put up to make those practices harder to do. So we're coming around very slowly, but
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is tearing, you know, lowering that dike and reintroducing that refuge to the fish and everything was fantastic, because, you know, if as you travel down the Columbia River, you'll see, like in Longview, for instance, they got a big dike that goes around the western side of and they put a lot of houses down in there. Well, that all used to be a place where you know, the young fish could stop on the way out, and then the older fish could stop on the way in. So it was like a resting place that doesn't exist anymore, and so many of those don't exist, you know. And so having this opened up is really good for the, you know, all of our Finn friends that travel up and down the river. And so I was feeling really, really happy about that, seeing that happen. And you know, and we you know, Chinook, we'd like to do a lot more of that down in our territory, but we don't have federal status, so it really, you know, hampers us on being able to push on some of these projects. And I know people would love to work with us, but we just, you know, we need to take care of that, and we're hoping we can get that taken care of this year. You know, we've been fighting it for way too long, you know, and we just need to. I keep telling people, I said, you know, it's very valuable to have a federally recognized tribe in your backyard. So, yeah, especially Pacific County. Pacific County is such a poor county. It's probably one of the poorest counties in the state. And, you know, we got projects in mind that would really help stimulate the economy. We talk about putting clinics in and opening it up to the public, you know, so that we can take, you know, mental health and drug rehab and so forth, you know, and much needed in that area. But you know, just being out in the woods and you know, trying to, you know, understand things. Recently, Greenwood Enterprises has been talking to us for a while about having a Chinook presence on their property. So they allow us to go up and do. They got 180,000 acres that they manage in Oregon and Washington in our territory, and they want us out there, so whether it's out there getting firewood for the winter or gathering food, or even hunting, a little bit of hunting that we're able to do out there. But we ended up working. They wanted us truly have a presence there, so we're in the process of purchasing 81 acres on the Nicantic River. It's actually on both sides of the river down there, with a beautiful piece of property. So we went down and visited it, and of course we had to stop to let a bear go across, and there's elk out there and so forth, and a lot of spruce trees, which is really good for us, because those thin roots is what they would take, and they would use to make their waterproof baskets for cooking, and so forth. And ferns, we're walking around looking at the ferns, and our chairman, he was looking at them, and he goes, well, there's like 5 different ferns that we could eat on, and you ate each one of them a little bit differently than the others. One might be the roots, one might be the stems, and so we're just looking at that. Wow, we need this property. There's bear grass for making baskets, and on and on and on. It was just so rich, and and when we look at lands like that, whether it's working with Columbia Land Trust or whatever, they might say, well, we got this land, we can go after it for you, but you can't develop on it. And we said, well, develop on it. There's so much resources here. We're happy, whether it's sweetgrass or whatever it may be, so we're just happy having land that is going to give back to us. Mother Nature will give back to us, Mother Earth, will provide for us. And it was kind of funny when they were down there planting the Wapato. It was kind of cold and everything. And I told them, I was telling them in the parking lot, I said, well, Chinook people, because they were all buttoned up. I wasn't too buttoned up, but they were pretty buttoned up. And I said, well, the ancestors, they didn't wear many clothes, in fact, there was a book written about them called Naked Against the Rain. And when you're jumping in and out of canoes all day, you can't be wearing all these musky furs or whatever, so they I said they would take a little bear grease or a little seal oil, and they just lather it on their skin, and it would block that wind or the rain. And then I said, and it would attract the women. So anyway, they were down there, they were planting, and they said, hey, Sam, do you want to plant some? I said, Mother Earth always gave us our Wapato. We didn't have to plant them, so they were planting them, and as they're up to almost past their elbow in the mud and so forth, and they get done, they come out, and it's cold. And I said, I bet you wish you had some of that bear grease, don't you? yeah. So, but no, it was good. It's just good to see all that work going on, and it'll be fun watching it develop, throughout the summer, just growing. And they're going to plant a lot of trees in there, and it's going to be a resource for us. One thing about Wapato, though, on the Columbia River is we worry a bit, like there's quite a bit of Wapato over on the Ridgefield Wildlife Refuge, but it was downriver of a Superfund. There was a wood treatment plant there that, they say they 100% cleaned it up, but do we believe that? So it's kind of hard to want to harvest that Wapato. Oops. Oh, there you go. Hard to want to harvest that Wapato. And then on the Columbia River, you worry about some of the stuff that's coming down the river. So up at Franz Lake, up further, it's part of the refuge complex. There's a group of Wapato out there that's fed by a spring. So I think we're going to urge them to let us go up there and harvest some Wapato out of that area, and take care of that, and then other resources. Here in Camas, they had Camas is named after the bulb, and that was a huge resource for our cousins up in this area. And roots are pretty tasty. I've been out on canoe journey, and I remember being in a squally, and the guy had a couple big bags of roots, and he goes, hey, anybody want some roots? Boy, those things went like gone. I said, well, now you're gonna have to go get some more. But yeah, just to be able to go out and harvest and eat that kind of food, and sample that food, and you know, and know when, you know, I mean, it's all about the timing and, you know, how sweet do you want your Wapato, you know, or, you know, and so forth. So a lot, you know, and there'll be some trial error and error with us, but you know, there are people that know these things, you know, and you just have to connect with them and make sure. Yeah, it's fun. It's good.
Yeah,
It's even
that's
better.
amazing.
It's even better if you can go out in a canoe to harvest them, you know. So
Right. Yeah. The folks at the Lower Columbia Estuary Partnership were saying that the indigenous women would just, feel around with their toes and pop the Wapato out that way. And I
yeah.
asked them if they went about it that way, and they're like, no, we're out there with shovels. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, they would do it so often that, you know, I mean, they'd be looser and they'd get, you know, bigger. You know, there was a spot that we stopped down by Rainier, and there's some Wapato growing down there, and you know, I had to go almost all the way up to my shoulder to reach down there and feel the bottom because there's so much silt that came through. And when I got down there, it was like a pencil. It wasn't like a bulb because it hadn't been touched in a while. So when you got these areas where the women were in there, you know, annually, you know, and for tens of thousands of years, then the bulbs are bigger because they're not so buried and so on, you know, and I think you know, you get a happier plant that way. So
yeah,
these ones being fresh, you know, I think it'll be good, and we'll encourage it and let us get in there and harvest them and keep them going, you know, and the seeds will spread and there'll be more and more, and we'll be in good shape.
that's fantastic.
Got to help
And
Mother
you have
Nature out.
land. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. What was
Oh,
that?
I just say you got to help Mother Nature out, you know.
Yeah.
And right now she needs a lot of help, so you know, we hope we can be part of helping her out. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. On that note, I was wondering if I could ask you about how you're feeling the effects of climate change and how your people are doing with some of these changes, like the heat dome and things that we've seen just in the last couple of years.
but just a couple weeks ago they were hit hard down at the coast, you know, I mean, snow in the mountains, you know, which is kind of a rarity, and I'm sure they enjoyed it for a little bit, but then when the rains came and they had king tides at the same time, it was like the water had nowhere to go. So, you know, like South Bend and Raymond and Ilwaco and all those places were flooding, you know, and so yeah, there was definitely some suffering from that, you know, that event there, and then you're constantly, you know, I mean, the oysters and so forth, you're constantly worried about, you know, pH levels and so forth, you know, and really watching it, you know, and we got a lot of people that work in that industry and are around that industry and have been for a long time, you know, fishing and so on, crabbing. Um, but yeah, like I said, we need to figure out how to keep a better eye on it and do some of the things, you know, that the ancestors would do to help it out. But without federal status, of course, we don't get. They ask us to have a, you know, a place at the table, but it's not, you know, a place at the table, you know, and that's what we keep fighting for and telling people, you know, we need to be, you know, it's important that Chinook is recognized. And of course, we've been doing that for a long time, and we were recognized in 2001 and got it pulled out 2002, so that wasn't good. But we are finding that more agencies want to work with Chinook, you know, throughout, you know, but for the big projects, you know, the creating fish habitat and so forth, you know, that's a little tougher. It's kind of nice, you know, if, you know, we get you know, we get lands that can't be developed on, that we can work with that, you know, as we get it, or that timberland that we got, we're not gonna cut the timber down, you know, we might put a few cabins in there so we can have a youth education center for resources or something like that. But other than that, it's just gonna remain, you know, this gift of all this beauty, you know, all this giving area, and but the other thing is, you know, the awareness, you know, we got to get our people out, you know, and without having a land base or economy where we can bring our people back, because, you know, our people spread out, you know, the first thing that took them away from the area was, you know, war, you know, I mean, you know, many of our tribal members are veterans, you know, so they went out, and then the other thing was to go get jobs. They had to go get jobs, so they spread out a little bit. But if we can increase that, you know, the economy in Pacific County and create something where they can come back, you know, we hope to get people back. You know, we do have some scholarship money that we're able to get people educated in hopes that they'll come back and work for the tribe. And as we need it, we're finally getting into a point where we can actually hire people, you know, and it's feeling pretty good, you know, and we can see that expanding. And but yeah, the more we could do a lot more if with the status, we can get out there, you know, we'll be invited to the table, you know, there'll be grants and so forth, you know, that we can utilize, you know. We did buy our treaty grounds at Tansy Point over by Astoria and Warrenton, and we're thinking about reestablishing the fish run on Tansy Creek that runs through that property. So, and we know it's fed by a spring, 2 springs, and they belong to the Clatsop County, and we're going to approach them, and hopefully they'll deed that to us so we can do our work and bring back that run, you know, and that's something small we can do, and we feel it's very, very important because by purchasing first thing, you know, the treaties, you know, we signed treaties. You know, my third great grandfather was Thomas Huxwell, and he signed the Answer-Dart Treaty down there at Tansy Point. And, you know, originally they came in, they thought they were going to move us, and then they found out that we're pretty good to the people that came into our territory, and they liked us. And so we told them we didn't want to leave the bones of our ancestors, so they allowed us to stay. And and at that treaty grounds, they made sure everybody that was Chinook was there. So there's about 1,500 people there that day for the signing. And so everybody that we all come from in the Chinook Indian Nation have an ancestor there. And the numbers are very small at the time because we lost over 95% of our population because of disease here on the Columbia River. And but to know that we all have, you know, roots there, and then to buy that and then try to improve it, you know, and get those fish going, and maybe make some access so we can get our canoes out into the Columbia River or out into the ocean from that area would be great as well. So it's all work in progress, and I feel, you know, once you get federal status, all of a sudden you're busy, you know, and then you'd have to find people. You have to find people to work, you know, and which will be really good. We'll be able to create a lot of jobs. And, you know, right now we've got 2 employees. For a long time, we only had a half of an employee. Councils never got paid. You know, we've never got paid for our work, but, you know, we're, other than the gratitude of being able to do it, you know, and carry on the ways. So, yeah, I you know, I look forward to doing more. You know, we can educate. I mean, that's about it. We can educate. We can get into classes and talk about the old ways and how people, you know, did things, you know, to improve, you know, life for all of our animal friends, you know, and us as well. But yeah, the climate change, just the rains and so forth has changed quite a bit. And then you continue to watch the water come up, you know, a bit here and there, you know, and, you know, you know, one of the businesses we talked about going into is we need a above tsunami storage facility. So it'd be good to go in the business of putting a storage units somewhere people can rent, because right now the ones that are in South Bend, Raymond, and Ilwaco are pretty low to the water. In fact, I think the water probably encroached them pretty good just with this last flooding we had, let alone if something big came through. Yeah, because we want to make sure we protect all of our documents that we have, you know, so we move some of it all the way up into PL, you know, way up into the hills, you know, to a place, you know, a bank up there. And, you know, it's like, yeah, you gotta protect that stuff. So.
Well, I'm impressed with all of the work that you've been able to accomplish, even without federal recognition. Just seems like you've been dedicating your life to this effort. So just really, it's a inspiring and heartbreaking kind of story of just a long.
And what really helps us is, you know, I mean, we tell our story, and people know we have that historical we may not have federal status. We're clearly not a rich tribe, but the refuge and national parks and city, county, and federal agencies deal with us, and work with us, and you know, and get our input, quite a bit, and so the, I think they're just getting, they know it's going to happen, so they kind of encourage us to keep pushing forward, and as soon as we can get that bill signed that we put in Patty Maria and Maria Cantwell's hands on the 1st of January. For years they've been telling us that we need to take care of Chinook. Well, now's the time, to just do it. We've got a lot of support from all the counties up and down the river, and cities, and so we've got a lot of resolutions that were passed, and it's real obvious, that people support Chinook, and we're going to put the pressure on them, putting a squeeze on them. So let's get this done. So this is the year. So actually last year could have been the year, but this is the year. And we calculate out, we know we live by our means, but with all the money that they gave out to the Indian tribes at COVID, we calculated out that by not being recognized, we probably missed out on about $134 million. You go from a totally poor tribe to, having all this money that we could, we got a little bit of money from some philanthropists, but we have a hard time spending it, and it's like, we got to spend this money. Come on, guys. It's like, so we're looking at maybe getting some more land and expanding our our office capacity, and getting, some maintenance people to take care of the lands, that we have, and so on. But when you're not used to spending money, and you're living off from fish sales, or just fundraisers, and all of a sudden now you got philanthropists that really get behind you. It's pretty crazy, but we feel good about it. We're feeling good. We just want to make sure we do whatever we do is right.
Yeah, well, it seems like you've got an incredible vision, and you've been building towards this for since contact, pretty much. So just really appreciate the work that you're doing, and how active you are. It's great to see.
And then I got my day job.
Which is what is your day job?
Well, I work for a glulam plant here in Washougal. I've been with them since 1979.
Wow.
I'm thinking about retiring this summer, maybe.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There aren't enough hours in the day to do all that you've laid out here. I'm just incredibly impressed.
It can be a chore sometimes. Sometimes you might get a lull for a couple of days, which is kind of nice, but then you kind of constantly have to look over your shoulder at your calendar to see what's next. So I even got I'm Confluence. They've been trying to get me on the board for like about 3 years, and finally I think it was last October, I joined the board for Confluence too. So, but they don't meet that often, so it's good. Yeah.
How do you recharge? How do you refresh your soul amid all these commitments?
We live, my wife and I have a house here. We raised our girls here in Vancouver, but we also, my auntie and my uncle sold us a little house in Bay Center, Washington, on the Willapa Bay. So we go down there, and there's no TV, and just peaceful and quiet, no hubbub, rush, and I can sit down there, and if it's a nice day, go down to the beach, because we're on a little island, and so you can go to a couple different beaches. And one of the beaches is a beach where Curtis, when he came through, took pictures of my third grade grandmother standing on the beach with her clamming baskets. And I can walk down to that beach where she was standing, or go around the corner where she lived, in a village, Goose Point. And so I got a lot of history there. So it's a real peaceful place, and a good place to go and hang out. I can sit on the back porch, see my grandmother's house, and my great uncle's houses were on the next block. And so just a lot of history. And, so I didn't know all my great uncles and great aunties, but I knew enough of them that, there's the memory of, being able to visit with them, and, talk about the old ways, and so on. So, and sometimes, with COVID, it's a little tough, but you go out and talking to people, about Chinook, and that's pretty relaxing, or pretty, it's, well, yeah, it is good, because people are so excited to learn. I taught a class at Clark College one time, and they said, well, it's going to take it's for like a, mature learning, extended learning class, and it was like 5 weeks long, and I had to get like 23 people to sign up to get the class, and I said, oh yeah, okay, that's their job, they can get you to do that. And they ended up getting like 50 people. They had to move me into an auditorium. I said, oh, okay, cool, cool. And I hadn't taught a class like that before, but it's, I just, try to, figure out what I wanted to talk to them about, and broke it down in different segments. And, I mean, our history goes back, tens of thousands of years. So, it's a, you can, I think I ended up teaching that class like 3 different times and still didn't cover, but just a smidge of all that history, so, but people liked it. They kept on coming, and we take a field trip out to the plank house at the Richfield Wildlife Refuge, which I helped build, years ago, and or the Maya Lin Land Bridge at Fort Vancouver, and talk about the plants, and what they're all used for, the medicines, or the food, and yeah, it was all good. And that land bridge is pretty cool, because when you go across it, it's just filled with all the vegetation, that we would have had. I went down there one day. They were having a work party, and they asked me before I joined the board. They asked me if I'd come down and do a blessing to get them started right, and I did that. A friend of mine had a little wagon, and she had some plants in it that she was taking it up to, put in different areas for people to plant. I said, "Are you are you restocking the pantry or the medicine cabinet here?" So, but yeah, so doing that kind of thing, getting out, seeing people, and talking to them, and then the big refresher for us has been, not in these last 2 years, but over time, has been the canoe journeys. Traveling up through the Sound, and even though you're out there for 8 to 12 hours in the canoe pulling, it's, you get done doing that after 8 or 10 days, and you do some protocol at the end, and then you're on your way back home, and you're like, yeah, I kind of miss being on journey already, and yeah, because it does, it's kind of spiritually uplifts you, and all the camaraderie, and all the canoes and people you see once a year, and a lot of relatives for Chinook, because our ancestors traveled all over the place. The trade routes for out of the Columbia River to southern Alaska or down to northern California, and then they would also go into the Sound. So we've got friends in Nisqually, and relatives in Lummi, and Suquamish, and I mean, yeah, our ancestors are scattering relatives, so so it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, as it goes. Is the canoe journey happening this year with COVID, or is it
I think I saw something not maybe not like it has been in the past. I know Philip Red Eagle had mentioned, maybe instead of having the big protocols that they would have, that when we'd come into a tribe's area and just go out there and clean their beaches, and then pick up and go to the next one and clean their beaches, and the next one, So there might be an opportunity to get into the canoes again this year, I'm hoping.
Yeah,
I don't know who would be hosting or anything like that, but I thought it was going to be Suquamish, but I'm not 100% sure. They kind of move around with COVID, but these last 2 years we were supposed to have gone into Canada, but that border was shut down, so that wasn't going to happen. So.
Yeah, up where I am, it's just like the stopping point,
Yeah.
In San Juan Islands, everyone's just swimming around, just short of the Canadian border. So it's been busy up here.
I've paddled through there, and it's all beautiful. It's always good from the water, when you're out on a canoe and seeing all these different places, going past little islands that don't even have roads to come to them, but there's houses on them, stuff like that. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's a funny place up here.
You guys need a little more sand on your beaches up there, though. It's pretty rocky.
It is hard to land a boat on a beach up here. torn up my kayak a few
Oh,
times.
yeah. And I'm like, yeah, these rocks, you know. But I remember one beach I landed on, and every rock you turned over had a little crab underneath it, you know. So pretty crazy. But
Oh my gosh.
yeah, if you find a piece of sand out there, it's like, wow, hey, sand. Whoa.
Yeah, just like up by Susha, I feel like, different geologic formations.
Yeah.
So the Treeline newsletter, the audience is primarily folks that are engaged in restoration and research and all of these things, nurseries that touch on restoring ecosystems to
Mhm.
a more functional state. And so I wonder, with that audience in mind, what do you think that people can do to support Chinook in this effort to receive federal recognition and then to, move into some of the more impactful actions that you've talked about today?
Yeah, I mean, as strong, just calling, emailing, doing whatever to the senators would be a huge, huge help, just because, yeah, and they could talk about the importance of having Chinook, helping, bring Mother Earth back the way she was, and that we deeply want to. But I think just being on top of them, I mean, because I'm not sure, but I think Murray must be coming up for re-election here pretty soon, so she's going to need some help. Um, yeah, I think when the voices start talking and saying, "Hey, you need to take care of Chinook. They've been neglected for a long time. They got huge history of taking care of Mother Earth, and they would like to bring some more of that back. We're all about that." Because we totally respect that. They've got a deep history with, the Bostons when they came into the river here, and great history. We worked well with all of them. Never fought with anybody, and a big history, with all the tribes up through the sound and so forth. But yeah, I think that would be the biggest. Jamie Herrera Butler, our congresswoman, she totally supports us and always had, but she just told us, you got to bring one of the senators with you because it can't happen without it. And they've always been the ones that say they're going to take care of us, but never do. But we just need to put the squeeze on them. I think that'd be the biggest way to help, and let them know, if you truly believe in Mother Earth, you got to have the Chinook, on board. So.
Well, thank you for that, and thanks for all that you've done again.
Okay, well, I appreciate you wanting to get, learn more about us and helping get the word out. And have a great day.
Thank you. You
I think
too.
that fog's going to lift for you.
I hope so, at least by Friday. All right. Have a good one.
I am Mossy.